Welcome to the Neurodivergency podcast, where neurodivergent voices turn struggle into strength. We're here to break the stigma, dive into truth, and bring you real tools for clarity, healing, and hope. Today's guest is Meghan Ashley. Welcome. So lovely
Thank
to have you
you.
here.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Meghan.
Okay, so I am a licensed professional counselor supervisor in Texas, and I'm an autistic adult. I have two autistic children. I do autism testing for other adults, and I also teach other autism clinicians all over the world how to do more culturally appropriate autism testing. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here and have a conversation with you today, Anthony.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah. So tell us a bit about your journey with neurodivergence. Tell us a little bit about what did life look like when you were struggling or maybe not even aware of the existence, and then tell us what does life look like now?
Great question. So my story is a little bit different. I was not, I didn't recognize that I was autistic until I was 34. I'm 38 now. And this is after a long career working with autistic individuals, having autistic children, um, always being fascinated by autistic people. I thought that their brains were the coolest thing in the world. I loved hearing about their special interests, not understanding the entire time that I was so fascinated with autism because I've been autistic my entire life. And so after recognizing that I was autistic, all kinds of things just kind of fell into place about why I do the things that I do, who I am, my autistic identity, all of those things. And so life has been vastly different post-diagnosis because I give myself more grace and space instead of doing the whole, why can't you just do this? Why can't you just do that? It's more of, we know why it's difficult. Let's find an accommodation because you can do whatever it is you'd like to do. But due to being autistic in a neurotypical world, you're going to need an accommodation to get things done, and that's more than okay.
Hmm, beautiful. So how did you realize about autism? What made you go into the diagnostic process and everything?
So I was already working with autistic adults. I always feel like as a therapist, your niche finds you and you kind of just have to succumb to it. And so I was already seeing some autistic individuals. And throughout my career, even in graduate school, I started this club at the place where I was doing my internship, which was a college, and we called it AA, or the other AA, because it was Autistic Alliance. And so I was a counselor intern at the counseling center at the college. And so we got all these kids together who were college students who all identified as autistic, and we thought that they needed like support, right? And so we would meet up and we would do these mock things with them, like mock dating. Like, how would it be if you went on a date with someone? What would you say to the waiter? Stuff like that, kind of like social scripts, and then just giving each other support and things. I thought that that was super important, but it was like all of the autistic students banded together in order to form their own community. And I really enjoyed being a part of that. And that was in graduate school. And then after, I started looking into working more with autistic adults, and I worked with autistic kids for a little while. And I used to always joke that if I ever have kids, they better be autistic because those are the only kids I understand. Again, not knowing I was autistic, right? And so then I have my children and they start growing up and they end up with an autism diagnosis. We go and get them tested, and during the testing, and which happens to a lot of parents, the doctor will say, "Hey, is this odd that your child does?" And the first thing you say is, "No, I do that." Of course it's not odd. And then the doctor looks at you like, maybe we should get you in for a diagnosis too. And that's usually
Mm.
how the ball starts to get rolling. For me, it started that way. And then it really culminated with my clients. I had already started seeing autistic adult clients, helping them with accommodations and figuring out what their lives look like. And once I started to really put the dots together of their struggles are my struggles, their strengths are my strengths, and I think it was really because I was seeing autistic women. That's what made it different, because it looks different in women a lot of the time, and it looks different in people of color because of culture. And I didn't think that I saw myself in the autism diagnosis prior to that. And I think that's what really made a big difference.
Wow, yeah, it's certainly not the most commonly talked about intersection
Mm-hmm.
between people of color and neurodivergence, and
Yeah.
specifically one subtype of that. Um, and so great to hear that you're sharing your story.
Thank you.
Um, I'd love to kind of peel back and understand a bit more about what are the particularities about autism. Like, if someone is listening, or even maybe myself, I've been asked the question a couple of times if I was autistic,
Mm-hmm.
and I've not gone deep into that journey. But yeah, somebody may be listening who might be autistic and has no idea. Can you speak a little bit about that to help them kind of identify and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
see what their next step should be?
Sure, sure. So autism is a neurotype or type of brain, and it just works a little bit differently than what we would call a neurotypical person's brain, right? So I always liken it to an iPhone and an Android. Both make phone calls, both do texting, both get on the internet, but the operating system and the way that they get to the conclusions that they get to is just different. And that's how it is with autistic brains. A lot of times, well, most autistics, you will have issues with sensory sensitivities. And so the way that your brain takes in the information around you and your environment, the way it takes in the way you taste, touch, smell, see, hear, all of your five senses is just different from a neurotypical person. So when we talk about being an autistic person in a neurotypical world, an autistic person being in a neurotypical world, everything's too loud. And this isn't with every autistic person. Again, every autistic person is different. You meet one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. So the way that our traits and symptoms show up are very individualized to us for multiple reasons, including culture and gender, and how you are raised in this world and who you are raised to be. And so if everything feels too bright, like the lights are too bright, the sounds are too loud, things are confusing, especially when people are saying things to you that you don't understand. And that's another trait of autism. A lot of times, it's not that we don't understand what other people are saying all the time. It's just that in communication, in modern society, there are a lot of rules that are not said out loud, right? There are a lot of unsaid rules to how you're supposed to act. When someone says, "Good morning, how are you?" You're supposed to say, "Fine, and you?" "I'm great, I'm good." You're never supposed to say, "Oh, well, I woke up this morning and I hit my toe on the end of the bed and then I cried because I couldn't remember where my glasses were." And then, like, you're not supposed to actually tell them how your morning was. But if you don't know these social rules, then you would just say the thing that you're not supposed to say out loud, right? And autistic people, that's part of the autism neurotype 2 is communication. So you have the sensory differences and then you have communicative differences, to where if we don't know the communication rules, then we don't inherently follow them. And that goes culture to culture, family to family, person to person. That's different too. And that's another reason why I didn't recognize my autism, is because it was accommodated for when I was growing up without me even realizing it. My family was a little different. We weren't like the traditional Black family where it's like no talking back, you go to church all the time. Like, we didn't have those strict and stringent rules to follow in certain ways. And so if I would have had those, then my autism probably would have shown a lot sooner, because I would have had something to like push up against, you know? But
Yeah.
because it was like my mom's an artist, right? In our family, we're always doing arts and crafts, and we're like very loosey goosey with different things. And so therefore it just kind of pre-accommodated my neurotype to where I could explore things in a different sensory sense than other kids might have. I went to a gifted and talented school, and so it's all about like creativity. It's not about sitting in your seat and being obedient and focused. We were always walking around doing random stuff at my elementary and middles and high schools. And so I don't think it was seen because I wasn't a problem. And that's how
Mm,
it is with a lot of women and people of color, because we it's only noticed when we are causing someone else discomfort. It's only noticed when we're causing someone else an inconvenience. And if our traits of autism look like the traits that are expected in a woman, you're supposed to be organized, you're supposed to be quiet, you're supposed to be introspective, you're supposed to kind of do your own thing, be in your own world, right? And you're supposed to smile and be pretty, and you're not causing anybody any issues, why would they notice? They don't know what's going on internally. And so that's why with doing assessments now, especially with women and women of color, it's so important to access that internal world to see like what's really going on. How do they really process things that are happening within their world? That's how you can tell if someone is autistic or not, is what does your processing system look like? It's just different.
interesting. And so for those who have gotten used to or developed techniques, masks, for example,
Mm-hmm.
to push those difficult feelings away or bend their behaviors in order to fit society expectations a little more. What does it look like in their internal worlds that might help understand if they might be autistic or not?
That's a great question. So I'm glad you mentioned masking. Masking is how we kind of put on this face for the world that looks like everyone else, when we're definitely different behind the mask. And most people show up in my office when the mask drops because they can't do it anymore. Because maybe work things are too difficult, or they have kids, which is a big one. A lot of times, people, especially women, the mask drops when they have children because the mask was so precarious in the first place. It was just teetering between like able to handle it and not. Having a screaming little potato of a baby is going to knock you over the edge a lot of the time, because
Mm.
having a baby is a extreme sensory experience. Like they are always like moving and wiggling, and they make smells and noises and stuff like that. So having a kid a lot of the times will push a woman or a man over into sensory overwhelm, and they realize that I can't do work and school and family and church and hobbies. I can't do all the things that I used to do, and it's really causing me distress because the mask was so thin to begin with that it does start to drop at some point. And so what you'll see is like irritability, which I mean is normal, especially in the current world. But like you'll see irritability far more often, especially unexplained irritability. Like you'll just snap at your kids for no reason because you're overstimulated, but you don't know that you're overstimulated. You just know that I was being mean to my baby when I woke up this morning. You'll also see a lot of overwhelm where you feel like you're drowning. Like I just cannot put one foot in front of the other. That is a lot of times autistic burnout before you even know that it's burnout. And so you'll see a lot of, I used to be able to do this, and this, but now I can't. And not like physically, a lot of the times it's mentally, like I feel this brain fog now. I've always identified as smart, and now I feel like it's taking me so much longer to formulate my thoughts and figure things out and have conversations with people. Another big one is small talk. So that is very much a socially appropriate thing. Like, how are you? I'm fine. Is it hot enough for you? Is it, you're working hard, hardly working, all of that. Small talk, especially with work, can be very taxing for an autistic person, because remember, our communication style is different. So if I'm constantly having to focus on what I'm saying, how I'm saying it, how I'm physically appearing, and putting this mask on when everything else gets to be too much, small talk is one of the first things that's going to go. I'm going to be very intolerant. I don't have time for this. It's not part of my job description. I don't want to anymore. I don't feel the need to. And especially after you have a kid, a lot of that care that you had, like I care how people see me, how people think of me, a lot of it falls away because you just don't have space for it anymore. So again, we're looking at this perfect storm of why can't I deal with the world? I used to be able to deal with the world, or even I've never really been able to deal with the world, but I was able to kind of keep all the plates spinning and make sure that everyone thought I could. And when the mask starts to drop, that's when they end up in our offices like, what's going on? And we start digging. And a lot of times it's the world wasn't meant for you, it wasn't built for you. And so you have to build your own.
Wow. Yeah, it can be really subtle, it sounds like, and
Yeah.
sometimes you have to get to that teetering point or the breaking point in order
Yeah.
to really identify it. So, yeah, I'm curious to know if you had the version of yourself from some time ago, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
that you could see is struggling because of neurodivergence, autism, and that's me right now. What, and I'm asking you for help. I don't know where my problems are coming from, or I don't know why I'm dealing with the situation I'm dealing with. What
Mm-hmm.
would you say to me?
Let's figure it out. And I would have you write down the things that you're struggling with, and then we'd figure out why. So if it's a good one, grocery shopping was always so overwhelming for me. I would have
Mm,
to like give myself a pep talk in the car to go inside of Walmart. And where I'm from, Walmart was like the norm, right? And so it took me a long time to realize that Walmart days also equaled meltdown days. And it wasn't just a coincidence. Walmart, I say, is the absolute gauntlet for deciding if someone's autistic or not. I joke about that in my autism assessments, but I have a reason. So if you go into Walmart, you will notice that there's super high ceilings and the roof is metal, and so every sound reverberates off of it. They always have that one basket with the squeaky wheel, and you're always the one who gets the basket with the squeaky wheel. And so that's just the noise parts. And then they have all of these fluorescent lights, which autistic people don't like fluorescent lights because they tend to constantly flicker. They make a buzzing sound that most times only we can hear. It's just very, very overwhelming. So any
mhm,
conversation you have, you could have one in Walmart if you wanted to, but you're also battling with that reverberation of the noise off the ceiling, the beep, beep, beep of the register, the wheel of the basket that's squeaking and spinning, these fluorescent lights. And so Walmart is a very overwhelming sensory experience for most autistic people. And so
mhm.
even in my assessments, I'll ask people, what's your relationship to Walmart? And as soon as I hear, oh, I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. Because it's not
Wow.
just like any grocery store, because Target is different, right? Target has warmer lighting, Target has plaster ceilings. And again, you may not notice any of these things if they're not a problem for you. But if you notice that going to the grocery store feels like climbing Mount Everest, it shouldn't. It shouldn't be that difficult. You're just going to go grab fruits and vegetables and food that you're going to eat. It shouldn't be a overwhelming experience. If it happens to be, let's look at why. Because it could be maybe you have some social anxiety. You don't want to talk to the checkout person. It could be that, or it could be that Walmart is a sensory hell that some people have to go through. And that's usually a big indicator is where are you going and what are you doing when you're feeling that extreme overwhelm, irritability, and the I just can'tness. Where are you at when that's happening? And that tells us a lot about the way that your brain processes information.
Interesting. Yeah, I've been cueing myself more and more about different sensory experiences,
Mhm.
especially since getting into neuroscience and training with flow. So, would it be a technique, perhaps, something to be aware of to kind of notice the different sights and smells and other sensory stimulation and use that as data points to kind of
Yes.
help clue you in about that?
Absolutely. Also, another tenet of autism is usually high pattern recognition. And so that means that if you see something that's happening, you're able to understand the patterns with it. So, again, understanding that every time I go to Walmart, a Walmart day equals an overwhelmed day, then using those data points, a lot of times autistic brains are really great at taking data objectively and figuring out where the consistencies are. And that's usually because we have to learn how to do that in order to learn communication with non-autistic people. Because we need to know when you furrow your brow, like that means that you're probably angry because last time you did that, I got yelled at. It's not that I understand your emotions all the time, is that I understand the patterns of behavior. And so therefore I can keep myself safe. So it's not always in conversation, even like if someone says, "How are you?" and I actually told them how I was, and then they made a face at me and then they stopped talking to me, that's a data point that I have. And so now I know that when people say, "How are you?" I'm supposed to say, "Fine, and you." And so the data points are ones that autistic people have like in the back of your mind, like think of it as a bunch of file cabinets and you have one for each thing and all of these data points come together. So to answer your question, like having all these data points about your sensory information and how you take it in, because again, not everybody is light sensitive, not everybody is sound sensitive, but you will have some type of sensory experience that's different than a neurotypical person. And so taking in that information and then understanding what that means for you. I haven't gotten groceries in a grocery store since pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, I was ordering my groceries every Friday, having them delivered to my doorstep because I realized pre-COVID that I just couldn't do it anymore. It caused me to have to recover for 2 to 3 days from having to be in that environment. My body was just so seemingly angry with me for being there. I would feel stressed out. I would feel exhausted just from going to grab groceries. And so I found a different solution. I found an accommodation because of those data points that I had that I realized that it was causing me so much distress. And that wasn't normal.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And that's a nice hack. And even more important is the principles behind it of identifying the place, situation,
Mm-hmm.
task that triggers the unpleasant experience or
Mm-hmm.
stress response, agitation within you, and then looking to solutions that might help. And I'm guessing since it has been so long, it has been a good implementation in your life.
Mhm. Yes, it has. And that's something that I work with my clients on. I even talk about it in the book that I have. In the back of the book, there's a chart where it has all of your five senses, and then it has like the places that you go. And so you can see like when I am at karate with my son, what are my sensory issues with sound? Is it that they're making sounds and it's surprising to me? Because that is a lot of the time something that autistic people deal with is transitions, meaning that if something is loud or sudden or you didn't expect it, then it can be difficult for us to kind of process that information in real time. And we can have a bit of a delayed reaction or expedited reaction depending on what it is. And so, do I not like karate because I don't know when the loud noise is going to happen? Is it because the dojo smells like feet? Because a lot of dojos smell like feet, right? Which is fine because there are feet in there. But if I have a sensory sensitivity to smell and it's certain smells, then I'm already going to be dysregulated when I'm in that space because of that smell. Is it that the lights in the dojo are super bright because they want the kids to be able to see each other well, and they have a bunch of mirrors, and so the light is bouncing off of the mirrors, and because I'm light sensitive, that is going to make me squint the whole time I'm in there, and eventually I'm going to end up with a headache because of it. So just looking at where I'm at and then all of those things. And I made this chart because I wanted to have a chart and I couldn't find one online. So I just made it and I started making those products for my clients and then parents of autistic kids too. And that's how I ended up writing my book about parenting autistic children as kind of like a handbook, because I looked for one and there wasn't one with the practical application that autistic people need. And if we're going to be honest, most autistic kids have one or two autistic parents. And so, therefore, as an autistic person, I need practical tips and things for me to be able to understand concepts. And they just didn't have those in the books that I was looking at for parenting autistic kids. So I just wrote my own.
Beautiful. Do you want to talk more about the book? What
Yeah, I can. I have it
you've talked a
here.
little bit, yeah, about what the reasons were behind why you decided to make this a reality. But yeah, tell us a bit more about what is on the inside and what can someone expect when getting this book.
Yeah. So this book is definitely a labor of love to the autism community. It's a short read, but the cool part about it is that it has all of these worksheets in the back, so I can show you the one that we were just talking about, the sensory sheet. So this is what it looks like. And you end up filling it in for everywhere you go and what your five senses are doing in those places. And basically, after you fill out the worksheets, go through the chapters, and as you go through the book, you end up having a book either about you as an autistic adult, if you're doing it for yourself, or about your child as an autistic child that has all of their information in it. What are their soothers? What are their triggers? What helps them when they're feeling this, this, and this? That whole chart of what are their sensory sensitivities, what is their communication style like when they're trying to tell you something, how do they communicate what they're trying to say? And it just ends up being a book about that individual, because again, meeting an autistic person is meeting an autistic person. You've met one person, everyone is completely different. And so it just kind of helps that person understand themselves, and ultimately helps other people understand that person, because I think that was a big hurdle for us in the autism community, is that that need to be understood, and that fight to make sure we're not misunderstood, because a lot of times people hear what we don't say. They respond to what they think we're trying to say when that's not exactly what we're saying. So if someone says something to me like oh my god, I'm so tired, and I'm like, yeah, me too, I'm tired all the time, someone who has experienced people over talking them, overshadowing them, trying to over identify with their experience and trying to like take over the room, they may feel like what I'm saying is that your tiredness doesn't matter, only mine does, and mine is bigger than yours. When what I'm really saying is, yeah, I get it. I feel the same way. I'm tired a lot of the time too. So they hear what you don't say, and then that person would respond to what you didn't say. They'll respond to you as if you were trying to one up them and say something like, I don't know why you brought up you were tired too. We were talking about me and not you. And then I'm confused because I'm like, oh no, I thought that we were just kind of agreeing with each other, when that person is really saying, I would like to talk about my exhaustion and no one else's, which is fine. It's absolutely fine. But we don't understand each other a lot of the time. And that's why the book that I wrote, I feel like is so important, is because us as autistic people need to understand our own selves in order for us to explain it to others if we want to.
Yeah, interesting. I can definitely relate a lot to what you're saying about having these moments
Mm-hmm.
uh of yeah, misunderstanding. It's always such a tricky because personally, I'm always trying to make a conclusion about every negative or unpleasant experiences. It could
Mm-hmm.
be that communication leads to a fight, and after that fight, I wonder how much is it about that person? How much is it about lack of awareness in me?
Mm-hmm.
And how much is it about improving communication skills or just getting to know one another? And it's such a complex topic.
It is, yes. And then throw in different neurotypes into that too. So
Yeah.
that's brings me to the double empathy problem. So a lot of people in the past have said that it was a tenet of autism that we were not empathetic people, which is absolutely not true. The issue is that our empathy can look different than neurotypical empathy. And sometimes we are hyper empathetic. A lot of us are actually, where we see somebody going through something and we just feel it so deeply that it almost pains us like it pains them. And part of the issue with the double empathy problem is that if a neurotypical person and a neurotypical person are having a conversation, they can understand each other. An autistic person, or even a neurodivergent person, some ADHDers, people with OCD, we could understand each other. But when you mix neurotypes, that's usually when we have an issue where a neurotypical person is talking to a neurodivergent person. Again, the neurotypical person a lot of times will hear what you don't say because they base their communication off of their experiences. If someone has said this to me before and this is what they meant by it, then I'm going to take what you said and I'm going to apply that, which only makes sense. They're taking their data
Mm.
points and they're using it. And what we do is our data points come in differently. Our data points are sensory more than it is inflection and things like that. And so therefore we're taking things almost objectively and they take things more subjectively. And so then you can see where we're having a disconnect. If I'm taking you at your word, if you say, oh, I can't stand this job, but what you're really meaning is, I don't have anything else to talk about. And I know we both work here. And I know that that is something we have in common because a lot of people do complain about like work or home or things like that, that they're not actually upset about. It's just kind of like a conversational piece. Then I would say something like, oh, well, if you hate it, are you looking for somewhere else to work? And a neurotypical person might take that as, are you trying to push me out of my job? Are you trying to like, undermine me in some way? And we're really just wondering, if you hated it so much, why are we talking about it? Why are you not trying to fix it? Like it's that disconnect that's happening again. It's not that we're not empathetic or that we cannot have conversations cross neurotype, but it just would take more understanding on both ends.
Yeah, that's really key to kind of unpick that.
Yeah.
Incredible. So tell us a bit about your transformational journey from before knowing about autism to where you are now. Like what were some of the big milestones that had an impact in your life? What were some of the key learnings or habits and systems that you've put in place to accommodate for a better situation?
No, that's a great question. So I'm all about systems, and a lot of autistic people are as well. We like to, again, know what's happening next because of that transition part. If transitions are difficult for us, and I don't just mean like transitioning from one room to the other, I mean transitioning from asleep to awake. I mean transitioning from I'm hungry to I'm eating. All of these like micro transitions that we have throughout the day, those are a lot of times difficult for us, especially if they're sudden and they're initiated by someone else. Because again, it takes us a little while to figure out what's going on. We have all of this sensory information coming in, and you want us to pick what we're going to eat today? I'm just gonna pick my safe food, which is right now, my safe food is chicken salad with white bread and carrots and grapes. And I can eat that for the foreseeable future until I hate it. And then I'm gonna choose a different safe food because then I don't have to think about what I'm eating. I know that this is something that I like, right? So that's one of the systems having in place is having certain things in my house that help me not have to make daily decisions. Because again, if we're
Mm.
taking in all this information at a different intensity and duration than other people, then I have to consider that when it's thinking about what to eat, what to wear. I have a uniform that I wear for work because it's so much easier for me to just throw this on than for me to have to think about colors and fit and all of these things. So that's one of the biggest ways that my life has changed is that I have systems and structure and protocol in place. And again, it's not a fail safe. I still have days. Everybody has days, right? But it definitely helps with the day to day when I don't have to make 3,000 different decisions and have 3,000 different transitions and have 3,000 different surprises and have to figure out and work through all of these things. I have systems in place so I don't have to do that. So I can use my brain for what I'd like to. I can use it for seeing clients, playing Stardew Valley, hanging out with my kids. Like it, I don't have to use so much of that operating system on things I find trivial.
Oh yeah, yeah. So a lot of yeah, just habit systems,
Hmm.
minimizing decisions, and
Yes.
using your willpower, executive function, brain capacity on things that matter more, as well as
Hmm.
kind of keeping yourself feeling good in a world that can be a little much.
Hmm.
Does everything unpleasant about autism boil down to nervous system regulation, or is there more to it?
Hmm. I think the unpleasantness honestly comes from environment, and I don't mean just like physical environment, but are you emotionally safe with the people you're around? How do you feel spiritually? Like all kinds of different pieces of self that we see like in anyone, right? And I just think that the unpleasantness for autistic people comes with a mismatch of person and environment. And the unfortunate part is that the systems in the world were not built with us in mind. They were built with the majority in mind, the neurotypical individuals. And
Mhm.
so, therefore, like, even when you look in systems like school, why do the kids in kindergarten have to all sit down to listen if they were all able to walk around and wander and do what they wanted to do while still listening to the teacher? That would be more of an autistic style to where we don't have to like make eye contact. We don't have to look directly at you in order for us to be paying attention to you. If it was built that way, then the neurotypical children might find difficulty in that because they need more of a sit down and look at this kind of environment, but the autistic people would thrive. So if the world was built more with us in mind, I think that it wouldn't be a lot of the unpleasantness. Like how I talked about how my world as a child was more neurodivergent than the greater world was. And so because I lived in this bubble of
Yeah.
accommodation, I didn't feel a lot of that unpleasantness. Like it just
Hmm.
wasn't there for me. And it wasn't that I wasn't autistic, it was that it was already pre accommodated for. And so I just
Yeah.
think that, yeah, I definitely think that environment is the biggest thing for autistic people because it's like dropping a sponge in water. Like it's like we have like a semi-permeable permeable membrane to where we take in so much. You have to be careful where you drop that sponge. If you drop that sponge in a sewer, we got a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such an insightful answer, this one, because there's a lot of stigma around neurodivergence, mental health in general, and maybe particularly autism. I don't know. But there's certainly a lot of assumptions that getting diagnosed with autism means that there's something wrong with you. And what you're saying here is actually there's nothing wrong with you. It's actually the environment that is not accommodating of you. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And I tell autistic people that all the time. And that's something I struggled with too, especially when I was first diagnosed. I'm like, maybe I'm not autistic. Maybe I'm just, socially anxious, which is what women are told all the time. You just have anxiety, you'll be fine. But then I would go into a situation in which I would go into straight up meltdown, like Walmart, the mall, different places with different things that I was having a reaction that was outside of the norm. And I'm like, oh, there it is. As soon as I'm outside of my accommodated bubble, the autism struggles show up. And I think that that's so important because we need to be looking at our strengths and our struggles. And so I'm not one of those people who's like autism is a superpower. I don't think that. I just think that we have very unique strengths and struggles. And if you can accommodate those struggles and then you can kind of elevate those strengths, then that's going to be your best bet for surviving and thriving in this world. And yeah, I don't think that there's anything wrong with being autistic at all. I just think that you got to kind of find your way in the world that's just not built for you, and that's okay.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about the strengths of autism, because we have talked a little bit about the struggles with sensory and social kind of vibes, but yeah, what's the strengths side of the coin?
So I think the biggest strength of autism is that we take in information differently. And because of that, we're going to have different solutions to the same problems. We're going to have different viewpoints on things. We're going to literally see things differently. We're going to see issues differently. You're going to come to different conclusions because you had different data points in the first place. So, an example would be if we're all looking at this puzzle and let's say everyone's standing on the same side of the table, but an autistic person would walk around the table because they want to see the puzzle differently because in their minds, they're taking in like the different sensory, the visual sensory information of the angles of the puzzle pieces. And then they're like, oh, that one goes there when other people may not have seen it before because that just wasn't their sensory experience. And so when we're talking about progress and we're talking about moving forward as a society and we're talking about all of these ideas and globalization and all of those things, autistic voices are necessary for change. Autistic voices are necessary for innovation. Autistic voices are necessary for so many different things. And even if we don't put forth all of these new ideas and things like that, we're still valuable as people. You know, and I think that's something that people have to understand too. Autistic people have strengths in the way that we process information. But also we don't have to be autism warriors all the time. We can just be. And you don't have to have like all of these Einsteinian ideas in order for you to be valuable as a person. You can just be.
Yeah, it's important in a world where we're so much expected to perform in order
Yeah.
to feel valued and loved, to kind
Mm-hmm.
of peel those layers back and go, wait, that's mental constructs right there, society and
Absolutely.
all this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. Um, so are there other autistic strengths that you want to speak to other than kind of different processing and so more creativity and innovative solutions to different problems? Or
Yeah, I think that the way that we have that intense pattern recognition is such a cool thing. So I usually say we'll usually ruin a movie because we know who the bad guy is in the first 5 minutes because they always like do certain things and we have recognized that the bad guys in the movies do these certain things. And so therefore we're like, oh yeah, it's him. And it's because of our pattern recognition that we're able to kind of read people in a different way. It's like we take away the emotion of meeting people sometimes, and it's just what are the key factors that we're looking at. We're able to see things again more objectively versus subjectively, and so that's what makes autistic people awesome doctors because doctors deal in numbers. They care if you're like feeling bad, but if you tell them that my such and such score is this and my score is this, they're able to like see the numbers in a different way. And so autistic people are great in medicine, law also, because the law is very much black and white. We're very much able to see exactly what's on the page. Again, we're not hearing what you didn't say. We're sitting there figuring out what it is that the data points are actually saying. So again, data analytics, psychology. Also, I am so honored to be part of a group of autistic individuals who happen to be therapists because there are actually a lot of autistic therapists. And some autistic therapists are some of the most amazing therapists I've ever met in my life because they're able to like pick up on all of these different things of a person's experience. And I'm a therapist, and I think that that's one of the reasons why I'm a good therapist. And that's not like me bragging about being a good therapist. That's literally me saying I really study my craft and I do it in a way that's very autistic. Like I'll tell a client if we're sitting and we're talking, hey, in the last 17 minutes, you told me I'm sorry 16 times. That's almost once a minute. What's going on that's making you feel so unworthy, making you feel so less than that you need to be constantly apologizing for your existence? And a lot of times that takes people off guard because they don't recognize their own patterns when we do. And so it's just a really cool thing. I think that my autism makes me a better mom because I'm able to really dive into who my kids are And it's not that neurotypical people don't understand their children, it's that I get a unique opportunity to understand my kids on a sensory level. So I know that if my littlest one is like walking through the house and he's constantly doing this, something's too loud. I get to hunt around the house and figure out what it is that's making him very sensory sensitive right then. And so then he can feel heard and understood without him even having to say too much. He was able to just indicate that something wasn't right. And I think that that's a really cool thing, is that we can use our strengths in that way.
Wow, yeah, that's a really cool multiple dimensions of it. The pattern recognition, objectivity, and data.
Hmm.
And I can definitely relate to a lot of it. Um, so yeah, that's amazing. And it just goes to show that the world thrives with diversity,
Hmm.
and that's the beautiful thing. It's not about feeling bad for feeling different or something like that. It's more about identifying, what it is that you are, who you are, what makes you unique and special, and understand yourself, and using that in order to create a life that works better for you.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You said that beautifully. That was awesome.
I've been thinking about this stuff for many years now. Um, so we've spoken a lot about autism and managing it, understanding it, um, accommodating for its strengths, weaknesses, but we haven't touched much on the multiple factors at play that have to do with environment, like the society, the larger context, the culture that we're in, even variables that have to do with the isms, I call them, and whether it's racism, ageism, ableism, and all of this intersectionality. I'm curious to know your perspective about how all of that plays in specifically with autism, or what is the message that the world needs to hear relating to that.
Hmm. I think the message that the world needs to hear is that autistic people are people. So the same way we see any other person as multifaceted and not just one thing, like I'm not just seen as a woman, I'm seen as a Black woman, I'm seen as a mother, I'm seen as a therapist, I'm seen as an autistic Black woman, like I'm seen as all of these different things. I think a lot of times people get very stuck on the autism part, and then they don't see anything else about that person, and they don't understand how all of the intersections work together. So that's another reason why we say that one autistic person is one autistic person. No two people have the exact same experiences in life, and that's going to color who they are all throughout their existence. And I would say that people just need to stop and talk to us. Like, just have a conversation and figure some things out. And you may be very surprised, instead of writing someone off as like, oh, okay, well, she's just autistic, she doesn't understand this, or oh, he's just autistic, he doesn't get that. Instead, it's like, well, what is it about the way that I'm communicating that means that this person doesn't understand me? What if I need to shift something in the way that I'm doing in order for us to be able to meet each other in the middle? I just think that people need to slow down, and instead of being so quick to be defensive about things, maybe be more introspective, more self-aware, so that you can connect with other people better, including and especially autistic people, because we're kind of cool. You should probably talk to us.
Definitely, definitely. You mentioned self-awareness here as one of the key skills that people should develop. That makes me curious to ask, what do you think are the top few skills that every human or every neurodivergent person, if different, should specifically cultivate in order to, I don't know, live a good life,
Hmm.
be able to have thriving relationships, or just navigate this world? Maybe that's a lot
Yeah.
of skills, but yeah, speak to that in
It
any way
is,
you
but I
can.
think it boils down to a couple. I think self-awareness is a big one. understanding self, I feel like is so crucial, not just for autistic people, but for anybody. Like understanding your own motivations and things, your own psychology is so crucially important because that's going to impact everything you do. So your thoughts become your beliefs become your actions become how you're interacting with the world. So you kind of had to check on your thoughts first before you're able to figure anything else out, right? And that's like, people going to therapy now. Therapy is more popular than ever, and I'm so excited for that. I love that people are wanting to work on themselves and find more self-awareness and understand what their triggers and soothers are and what their strengths and struggles are, because everyone has them. I think the other biggest thing is critical thinking. And that is not something that everyone, well, actually, it's not something anyone I think has inherently. I think it's always something that you have to learn. And critical thinking has the easiest three steps. You ask the questions, you analyze the data, you draw the conclusions. That's what you do every time you have to think critically about something, whether it's what am I having for dinner, or how do I feel about world war, or what is it that I'm thinking or feeling. Like I need to understand, I need to ask the right questions, analyze the data, draw the conclusions. I think that that's so crucial, especially for us to teach our children, that you don't accept things just blindly. You need to ask questions and figure out if this is something that fits within your belief system. And if it is or it isn't, then how can you explore it further? And I think that that's something that people need is self-awareness and critical thinking. And I think a lot of what is going on in the world may be different if people did more of that.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And it plays such a huge role in neurodivergence and in health in general,
Mm-hmm.
because well, our beliefs shape a lot of our experience, as you said, and most people are aware of the placebo effect when we take something that we believe is going to do something good, but it's actually meant to be neutral, and it actually
Mm-hmm.
does result in something good. But most people don't necessarily know about the nocebo effect, which is the exact opposite. You take something neutral, but if you believe that it's going to do you bad, it does you bad. And
Yeah,
to relate that back to neurodivergence and mental health in general, it's the same about your beliefs. So this is where the critical thinking comes in and is really a key skill to develop. Like, where did these thoughts and beliefs come from? Do I have the right data? And what new conclusions can I make if I keep digging and keep exploring to learn more about myself?
absolutely.
That's awesome. Megan, as we wind down towards the end of the podcast, what's something that you want to share that either you haven't mentioned yet or maybe you want to emphasize to really take home?
I think we said a lot, Anthony, though. Like, I think we had a pretty cool conversation. So I don't think that there's anything that was really missed. I think if anyone took away something from this conversation, it would be to get to know autistic people individually. You may have a lot of autistic people in your circle and you may not even realize it because they may not realize it, or they've realized it but they feel afraid to be their full selves or take their mask off in front of you, because some people fall in love with the mask and they don't want you to change or to be your full self or be different. So I would just say, like, that open-mindedness that you have to have in order for you to be able to critically think about things, I think is just an important thing for people to walk through this world with. And if I had any encouragement, it would be go hang out with some autistic people and see what they got to say.
Beautiful. And you might already be doing so without knowing.
Mhm.
That's so
Mhm.
cool. Beyond all labels, we are all beautiful individual humans.
Mhm.
That is such a lovely, yeah, lovely ending note to come to. Of course, Megan, your biography and any relevant links that you want to share will be available in the show notes. If people want to get in touch with you or connect with you, what would be the next step that you want to tell them?
Yeah, you can visit my website. It's the letter M as in Megan, mperfectconsulting.com. There you can see all the stuff I'm doing therapeutically. You can also find the book. It's called Blueprint to Behavior. And you can search my name, Meghan Ashley, on Amazon if you want, or anywhere where books are sold online. BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart.com, Target.com, all of the .coms where you can buy books online. You can find Blueprint to Behavior, and you can also support your local bookstore because it would be in their online database. So you can go on their website, order it, have it sent to your bookstore, and then you can pay them so we can support our local bookstores, which is so important. So if you get the book, let me know. My email is always open. I love hearing from people. I love people who have questions. Just ask whatever you want to ask, and I'm going to help you in any way that I absolutely can. I enjoy, as an autistic person, being a connector of dots. So if you need dots connected, you're just like, hey, what is this, and this, and how does this fit in into the grand scheme of things? That is my absolute jam. So please email me if you have any questions about autism or about me or about the book and things like that. Oh, also I have a TED Talk. It's called What Autistic Adults What You Want You to Know. And so you can look for my name, Meghan Ashley, and search TED Talk on YouTube, and you can watch that. And it goes far more in depth about the strengths and struggles of being an autistic adult, especially a late diagnosed one. So yeah, watch that, comment, like, all of those things. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes, such an honor to have a TED speaker here on the podcast. I have watched that TED Talk. I highly recommend it.
Hey,
Yeah, Megan, thank you so much for your words of wisdom, your inspiring story, and all of these practical, actionable insights and tools. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
thank you. Thank you for having me.